What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Talkin Sports with Jake. Hope we're all doing well. So, in 5 seasons of doing this show, I'm not sure I've ever had more to talk about. I was gonna do, a recap about the NHL trade deadline and talk about some other stuff as well, on top of course, what's going on in NFL free agency, but that would just be, we'd be here all night, so I'm gonna talk about what we've heard in NFL free agency so far. I'm sure more of this will come in as the show goes on. If anything else besides what I already have prepared for you guys comes through, I will announce that live. As of the time I'm filming this, I've only been back on campus at Sacred Heart. Came back from spring break about hour and a half, not even 2 hours ago. I wasn't sure if I was gonna do a show today. By the time I got back, by the time you guys are listening to this, it might already be Tuesday, or maybe obviously it's much later than 3:18 p.m. Eastern time. But then all these moves started dropping. I was like, not only do I have to do a show, it has to be solely NFL free agency, because otherwise it's not gonna work. So let's get right to the chase. So let's start with some cap casualties. The Denver Broncos let go of Justin Simmons. That saves them $14.5 million in cap space. I mean, they need all the cap space they can get. They're paying Russell Wilson $38 million to play for another football team. Get to him shortly, but they let him go. The 49ers cut Eric Armstead, a big surprise. They wanted him to take a pay cut. He was going to be due $20.5 million. They said, "Got to take a pay cut." He said no, so they let him go. They saved $18.5 million in cap space. They have about $10 million or $10.5 million dead cap. And he's going to test free agency. I heard he could come back, but he's going to test the market. He's a very good D tackle. He had a big year in 2019, got 10 sacks, he got a big deal. Hasn't been able to replicate that sack number since, but still been a very good defensive tackle, a guy that can get 5 or 6 sacks a season. But the last 2 years, he's missed a lot of games. He's only played 21 games the last 2 years. But he was he had a big game in the Super Bowl. He had like 2 or 3 sacks in the Super Bowl. But he's on the open market. The Steelers let go of Patrick Peterson. That saves him a bunch of money. That saves him almost $7 million in cap space. He's still a solid corner. Nobody wants to. I think he's now 34 years old. He's been in the league for a while. He was an all-pro year after year in Arizona. He's kind of bounced around. He was in Minnesota. Now he was just in Pittsburgh. But he's still a solid corner, but that's about it. And they also cut Allen Robinson, saved him $10 million. No surprise there. He only had 34 catches last year. I don't think he had a single touchdown. He doesn't have much left in the tank. They don't really have any dead cap that can basically clear the $10 million that he was due. So that was an easy move. Speaking of the Pittsburgh Steelers, they signed Russell Wilson to a 1-year deal. So he is now on Pittsburgh. So he only gets $1.7 million, the veteran minimum. Denver's paying, like I said, Denver's paying $38 million to play for somebody else. He has an $85 million dead cap hit over the next 2 years. It's by far the largest dead cap hit ever in the history of the league. I assume he is gonna... my guess is that he will be the starter. Look, he's a better quarterback than Kenny Pickett. I don't know how much he has left. He had 26 touchdowns against 8 picks, but he just had... he's got no warm up. He barely cleared 3,000 yards. Yes, he didn't play the last 2 games because they sat him, but still. He barely cleared 3,000 yards in 15 games last year. I really don't know how much he has left. I like, him there with George Pickens, who's also got a lot of talent. Deontay Johnson's there for now. I heard they're looking to trade him. I'm not sure if this will help keep him or not. They're on a cap crunch. They came in over the cap. They might still be over the cap, to be honest. So, you cleared almost $17 million by letting go of Allen Robinson and Patrick Peterson. They're looking to trade Deontay Johnson, so they're clearly trying to get under the cap. Russell Wilson did not obviously get a lot of money. He only got not even $2 million for the 1 year. Kenny Pickett's horrible. He's not the guy. He's not a starting quarterback in this league. I don't know if he belongs in the NFL. Russ is not really a guy I want around my young quarterback. He's got such a big ego, and he's not a guy it's like, gonna accept the backup role or he ever. He's not a guy like, you know what? Now I'm 35 years old, not the same anymore. I don't have the same arm strength I used to. You know, I'm not a starter, but, I can be a good mentor. If I need to go in, I can go in there for a few games and get the job done, for a month or two if needed. Kind of hold the fort down. There are guys like that, like Gardner Minshew, like Jacoby Brissett. Joe Flacco kind of became that kind of guy later in his career. But, Russ, I don't think is that kind of guy. He doesn't strike me as that kind of guy at all. So, like I said, especially if they keep Deontay Johnson, with him, George Pickens, Fryer move, Najee Harris as your running back. I don't hate what he's got there. They got a nice little defense as well. But like it's Pat Pearson, they still have a very good defense. Obviously, Mike Tomlin is a great coach. Arthur Smith runs a more run-heavy system, so I think that'll help a little bit. So I don't hate him in Arthur Smith's offense. Problem is, they gotta fix the offensive line. The offensive line is brutal. They drafted a kid in Robert Jones last year, the left tackle in the first round, who I like. Samwali brought in last year for him. He's good. Other than that, the offensive line, it basically has 3 openings on that offensive line. Russ, he can still make a few plays of his leg, but not like he used to. His arm is gone. If they run back that same offensive line, that's going to be problematic. I don't care who they have back there. But he's a Steeler. The Ravens lock up Justin Matabuke, who they franchise tagged. He gets 4 years, $98 million, $75.5 million guaranteed, so a lot of guaranteed money. He had a huge year. He's a guy who's kind of gotten better every year he's been in the league. He had a career high 13 sacks past year, was an all-pro, absolute stud, and the Ravens lock him up. You got John Smith goes to the Dolphins, 2 years, $10 million. He got a lot going on. He had a pretty good year last year. He had 50 catches this past year. He's a solid starting tight end. He was in Tennessee for a while, had a short stint in New England for a couple of years, and last year was in Atlanta. Atlanta let him go for cap purposes, and now he goes to Miami. Miami needed a tight end. Ever since they lost Mike Gesicki 2 years ago, last year they had to rely on Durham Smith to be their top tight end. Mike McDaniel, before taking the head coach out of Miami 3 years ago, was the offensive coordinator in San Francisco. Of course, they have George Kittle, who's an all-pro tight end, on his way to possibly being a Hall of Famer. His offense obviously likes to use tight end, but they haven't really had a ton they can. His first year they had Mike Gesicki. I didn't really think was used that well. Obviously, Durham Smith is no starting cover tight end in this league, but now they have a guy in General Smith who's pretty good. The New England Patriots re-signed a couple of guys. They brought back Hunter Henry, 3 years, $30 million. He had a good year last year. He's always been solid. He's been able to stay healthy the last couple of years. They bring him back. He was probably their best pass catcher last year. At least most consistent one or most durable one. And they also re-signed Kendrick Bourne. He gets 3 years, $19.5 million. I think he can make a little more than that in incentives. Before he got hurt, he was playing well for them, considering who his quarterback was at least and how bad that offense was. But he comes back. The Saints re-signed Tyrann Mathieu, 2 years, $13 million. The veteran safety. He had a good year last year. He's still a solid cover set, even though he's a little bit older. You got the Bears lock up Javen Johnson. They re-signed him 4 years, $76 million, $54 million guarantee. He's, a young elite corners just entering their prime do not hit the open market very often. They do not grow on trees. Whenever you have a chance to re-sign one to a long-term deal, you should do it. The Bears did just that. He's an absolute stud. He can succeed in man as well as zone. So, kind of a no-brainer there. And we also signed Kevin Byard, who Philly let go, 2 years, $50 million. I think it's a solid signing, for Byard. He's a little bit older. Not quite the same player anymore, but he's very versatile, which is good. Bears got a lot of young defensive backs in that secondary with, Jaquan Brisker and Jalen Johnson. Bringing a vet like Kevin Byard, I think, could be very beneficial to a lot of those young guys. He can still play to an extent. He's still pretty good. Had 122 tackles last year. His ball hacking skills, which a few years ago were among the best in the league, are not quite there anymore. But he's still a solid safety who can play a little closer to the line of scrimmage and is very versatile. The Rams brought back Kevin Dotson, 3 years, $40 million. That's a nice signing for them. You know, he had a PFF grade of 85 last year. He had a great year. Not sure why Pittsburgh traded him for nothing, basically, right before the around the roster cut down day last year. I mean, this was going to happen. It makes even less sense. It makes even less sense now. He had a really good year, and the Rams bring him back. Rams need all the O-line help they can get, and they bring back Dotson, which will help. The Bucs re-signed Baker Mayfield. 3 years, $100 million, can make up to $115, gets $50 million guaranteed. I think this is a fantastic contract. I think Jason Light, the Bucs GM, did a great job with this. Baker, you know, so he gets $33.3 million or so a little over $33 million. With incentives, that can go to almost $38 million a year. 50 of it is guaranteed, so about half is what he has right now is guaranteed. This is the perfect deal. Because if Baker goes out there next year, has another good year, all right, they have him for great value, you know, for a couple of more years. If he goes out and he regresses next year, it's a trade. The contract isn't awful, you know, $33 million, just over that for 2 years in today's NFL for a starting quarterback is not that bad at all. You know, this is a very good contract. You know, as soon as Mike Evans time, he knew it was happening, and he will be back in Tampa Bay. You got Chris Jones is back in Kansas City. He's getting a 5-year deal. We don't know all the details yet, but $95 million of that will be guaranteed. So at least 95, obviously. It's a big deal for Chris Jones. We knew he'd get the bag, but at least 95 is going to be guaranteed for Chris Jones, who's, of course, still one of the best D tackles in all of football. He wanted to come back. I'm not sure why he'd want to leave. He's got 4 Super Bowls, and he's no pro D tackles in his whole career there. No reason why he shouldn't want to come back. Chiefs wanted him back, and they got it done. Tyler Lockett did a little contract restructure. His new contract is now for 2 years, $30 million with $13 million guaranteed. New York Jets haven't done a whole lot, but they brought back Greg Zuerlein, their kicker, 2 years, $8.4 million, which I'm happy about. He had a very good year last year. He's been very good for the Jets the last 2 years. And for Jason Myers, left for Seattle a bunch of years ago. Jets went through just so many bad kickers. They finally found a solid guy in Greg Zuerlein. Has been very good these last 2 years. You know, Aaron Rodgers went on some show or some podcast. I asked him, like, is there any phrase you definitely want back? And he said, you know, Zuerlein and the punter, Thomas Morrison, because he want back. And I have to agree with him. I mean, Thomas Morrison, he's a punter. Punters are very replaceable, but you never know with the Jets. If Rodgers gets hurt again, their offense is going to be very bad, so they may have to punt a lot. But I'm happy Greg Zuerlein is back. And they brought in Isaiah Oliver, who started 6 games for the 49ers last year. He's a veteran corner. That's just a death thing. On a 1-year deal. Fletcher Cox announced his retirement from the NFL. He's a 6-time Pro Bowler in 12 years with the Philadelphia Eagles. A Philly legend, of course, won a Super Bowl in 2017. A very nice career. He announces his retirement. Patriots traded Mac Jones to the Jacksonville Jaguars for a 6th-round draft pick. That's about as much as they're going to get. For Mac Jones, he's a bust. Not good. Obviously did not work out. You know, nothing much there. I think he's from around there. So maybe they told him, like, you know, is there a place you want to go? He was like, well, am I going to be a starter? And they're like, oh, no, you're not. I was like, all right, I guess I'll go somewhere close to home. And Trevor Lawrence is definitely, so far, it's been very overrated and overhyped. Maybe if he proves he's not the guy, Mac will get a shot, but I doubt it. He's clearly he's not a starter in this league. And if Mac Jones for a 6th-round pick, I'm not sure if Kim mentioned Jessica, a 7th-rounder for Zach Wilson. I don't know if they can. I don't know, because Mac's a little better than Zach Wilson. They're both absolutely awful. Both complete misses, especially Zach Wilson. But if Mac goes for a 6th-rounder, Zach Wilson just might get a 7th-rounder this year for him. Maybe. They might get like a 6 or 7 for 2025. That might be... I'd just cut him at this point. I mean, he can't be on the roster next year. There's no way they keep him on the roster. The Cleveland Browns pick up Jerry Jeudy from the Broncos for a 5th-round, 6th-round pick. You know, he had a lot of hype and potential coming out of Alabama about 4 or 5 years ago. Hasn't quite worked out. He also has had very bad quarterbacks. No, 2 or 3 years ago, he had over 900 yards. This past year, he had an okay year, had like 700 yards this past year. Yeah, Russell Wilson, obviously, at one point he was beefing with Rodney Harrison. I don't think he's going to become that, legit one that we all thought he was going to be. But, he might not, with a better quarterback, could be a solid 2 or 3 possibly. I don't know what Deshaun Watson will be able to give you next year, but if he's healthy, he can give you something. Judy's not a bad piece. You pair him next to Amari Cooper, Elijah Moore, and David Njoku. Your team might have to rely on the pass game a lot more than they have in the past year with Nick Chubb, possibly getting let go. Is he going to be healthy next year? What can Jerome Ford give you? As a full-time running back one, possibly so. They let him go. I'm hearing the Cowboys are probably going to let go of Michael Gallup. I heard they gave him permission to seek a trade. I think the goal is to trade him, but if not, they'll probably cut him. That's probably a financial thing. T. Higgins has requested a trade from the Cincinnati Bengals. My guess is they don't want to pay him because they still got to pay Jamar Chase. Gotta give him an extension. He's obviously on the franchise tag right now. Obviously, they paid Joe Burrow last year. I heard Joe Mixon might have to get let go, for financial purposes. We'll see where that goes, but he wants out. Someone will take him. He's a great receiver. The Colts lock up Michael Pittman. The guy was franchise tag. He gets 3 years, $71.5 million with $46 million guaranteed. He gets a big contract. I like Pittman. I think he's a very good player. So if my math is correct, that gives him about 23-ish million. I'm very bad at math. That's why I'm trying to be a broadcaster and not a mathematician. But I think that puts him at 23, pushing $24 million a year. That's the maximum he can get up to. 46 is guaranteed. That's a lot of money. I Pittman's a very good number 2. He's an okay one, but a very good number 2, so he's a good player. To me, if I'm the Colts, you got a young team that's on the rise. Last year we're a little better than expected. Almost made the playoffs. You have a young quarterback in Anthony Richardson. You got a good back in Jonathan Taylor. You got some pieces on the offensive line. You got some pieces on defense. So try and keep as many of these good young players as you can. Pittman's is one of those pieces. I think that's a good idea to keep him. DeAndre Swift goes to the Chicago Bears. 3 years, $24 million. I think that's a good signing. $8 million a year for Swift is a little much what I thought he'd get, but he's a very good player. I thought he was always good. My whole thing was can't stay on the field. He had a lot of trouble doing that in Detroit. And Lions have surplus of back, so he lost playing time. Then he went to Philly, part of a committee where he can kind of be like the lead guy. And he played really, really well last year. So he goes to the Bears. I'm sure he'll have a lot more touchdowns than the Bears won't do, but because the Bears are the Eagles and they won't be doing the push. But yeah, I do like that for the Bears. They need a 3-down back. Something I think they need, and now they have that in DeAndre Swift. So the Vikings bring in Jonathan Grenard. 4 years, $76 million, $42 million guaranteed. That's a lot of money. It's I think he's got $19 million a year. He had a great year this year for Houston. Kind of came out of nowhere. He was like an okay guy. A big year, breakout year, 12.5 sacks. I'm surprised he didn't make more of an effort to re-sign him. I'm not sure with what kind of talks they had, but obviously he wasn't tagged. Houston's got obviously one of the best young cores in the league. They're obviously on the rise behind, led by C.J. Stroud and head coach Jimmy Ryans. But if Grenard can, continue to do what he did last year, him and Ryerson for years could have terrorized quarterbacks. But that's a big pickup for the Vikings, who are starved for talent on the defensive side of the ball. Probably losing Danielle Hunter in free agency, who had 6.5 sacks last year, and he gets replaced with Jonathan Grenard, who if he keeps it up, could possibly get to that number in a year or two when it comes to sacks, and is a lot younger than Hunter. I think Hunter's 30, 31, 32, and Grenard's about 25, 26. Christian Wilkins goes to the Raiders. He gets a huge deal. 4 years, $110 million, $86 million guaranteed. That's a lot of money for Christian Wilkins. That is a hefty price to pay. I think that's about $27.5 million a year. So that's a big number. put that in perspective, Quinnen Williams last year, his extension with the Jets was 4 for 98. And, just Metabuke got an identical contract about a week or two ago. Just I think Metabuke has got some more guarantee money than Quinnen Williams. That's 24.5. So he gets an extra $3 million per year than both Quinnen Williams and Justin Metabuke. So I do think they were paying a little, but he's a really good player. I think he was drafted in 2016. He's older than I thought. When I was going through free agents, I didn't realize he's actually 29 years old. But yeah, big deal. But him and Max Crosby on that D line that's absolutely insane. And if the kid Tyree Wilson never develops, he was a top 10 pick this past year. That D line is ferocious in Vegas. I'm sure Antonio Pierce is licking his chops having Christian Wilkins at his disposal. Josh Jacobs goes to the Packers. Don't know the contract terms yet, but Josh Jacobs is a Packer, so did not expect that. That came out of nowhere. But and they have cut Aaron Jones. He's been let go. There was rumors they were going to do it. They're negotiating maybe a restructured deal, maybe a pay cut for him. But with Josh Jacobs coming in, apparently the Raiders got outbid for him by the Packers. They will let him go. In Vegas, apparently Zamir White's going to be their top back. He played pretty well when Jacobs didn't play. He missed a couple of games of injury this past year. He played pretty well. They took him in the forefront a couple of years ago, and I heard they also might draft somebody, but the plan is to start Zamir White and maybe draft somebody. So they probably won't go off of Derrick Henry or anybody like that. Any music or running backs on the market. The Rams signed Colby Parkinson, 3 years, $22.5 million. This one I don't really get. That's what, $7.5 million a year for a backup tight end, basically. I don't really get it. He's a good blocking tight end, I guess, but $7.5 million seems kind of a lot. Jaguars signed Gabe Davis, 3 years, $39 million. Can earn up to $50 in incentives. Look, I don't think he's a bad player. A couple of years ago, he had that huge game in the playoffs where he had 200 yards and 4 touchdowns. Everyone's like, "Oh, he's arrived. He's gonna be a stud." Never really have, but he's still a solid third receiver, good speed threat. I think $13 million is a little bit too much, though. If they were going to spend on a receiver, I'd give, I just fork up the $20+ million it's going to take to re-sign Calvin Ridley. But I do think he's a solid speed threat, at least. Eagles signed Bryce Huff, 3 years, $51 million. I was hoping the Jets would bring him back, but half the thing wasn't going to happen. They're lower than their front seven. He had 10 sacks and didn't even play half the snaps. Now he goes to Philly, he'll have much more of a role, probably. Hassan Reddick and Josh Sweat both from a trade block. He's probably replacing for at least one of them. He's still really young. I do think that's a little bit of an overpay for a guy who we don't even know if he's, we don't know if he can, he just really only use him on passing downs. Can he stop the run? If he now playing 75-80% of the snaps, possibly post 45-50, will that lead to a decrease in production? I don't think it will. I think he's a legit player, edge rusher in his league, who can be a 10 to 12 sack a year guy. But until we see that, I wouldn't have given the guy $51 million. I think that comes to lower 14.5, pushing $15 million a year. But I expect him to help the Eagles in a lot of different ways next year. But Tennessee Titans signed Tony Pollard, 3 years, $24 million. Don't know why he left Dallas to go to Tennessee. That line is pathetically bad. It's awful. But he's a good player. He didn't quite have this huge breakout that we all were expecting him to. But he's a good back. No, he's a solid back. Can give you, 1,000-ish yards a season. He's a decent pass catcher. But he's not the best back ever. I think $8 million's a little rich for Tony Pollard. But he is still young. But I just don't like the spot he went in Tennessee. I don't mind him, the offense are going to run. I don't mind him in that offense. But just look what you got. I mean, he'll get a lot of reps. But to me, he was better when Ezekiel Elliott was there and they were able to keep him to 200, 210, 220 touches. And then when they took off the handcuffs and he's getting, a lot more touches, he wasn't as efficient. He only had 6 touchdowns last year. The year before, when he wasn't getting as many reps, he had like 10, 11, 12 plus touchdowns. And last year only had 6, so. He's not a goal line guy, but he's a solid back. And Titans need to replace Derrick Henry, and they did just that. They got a guy who's a lot younger, obviously. Power's only on 25-26. Henry is now 30 years old. Kirk Cousins has signed with the Atlanta Falcons. So big news when the top ratings comes off the board. 4 years, $180 million of $100 guaranteed. Look, that's a lot of money. So he gets. I'm so bad at math. I think that's like $45 million a year. 100 guaranteed. That's a lot for Kirk Cousins. I would have probably given them between 35. I wouldn't have probably gone higher than 40. And he's 36 years old, coming with a torn Achilles. I'm not sure. I would have given him no more than 3 years, preferably 2. But also, with Kirk Cousins, Atlanta is the clear best team in the NFC South. They won 7 games last year with Desmond Ridder and Taylor Heineke, and their head coach is Arthur Smith. I'm not sold on Raheem Morris as a head coach. But, put it this way, it looked like they were training for Justin Fields. Kirk Cousins, I think, is a much better fit in that offense, in Zach Robinson's offense. You got Peter Robinson, you got Drake London there, you got Kyle Pitts there. They have the 8th pick in the draft. They have a chance to add another playmaker, maybe Roma Dunze. I'm hearing a lot. That name being thrown around a lot. Pretty good defense, pretty good line. Put you this way, Kirk, before he got hurt, was having a great year in Minnesota. He's probably got a worse off head coach. His offense is probably just as good of a system. He's got a better offensive line. The weapons may not be quite as good, but they're still more than good enough. And he's got a much better defense. And he's in a even weaker division. This is overall a better situation for him. And he was blown out before he got hurt last year in Minnesota at 35 years of age. As long as he comes back from that Achilles smoothly, as to why I think he will be just fine, my reasoning is modern medicine. Modern medicine is an incredible thing. People need to stop, pretending it like, a guy at 35 years old is, gonna just, he has one bad knee injury, or leg injury, he's gonna completely fall off. No. Aaron Rodgers was ready to play like 3 rounds after he tore his Achilles at 40 years old. Kirk at 36, I think he'll be fine. All of his, having a full off season, the rest of last year, and a full off season to recover. He'll be fine by training camp. It's a big move for the Atlanta Falcons. And Saquon Barkley is a Philadelphia Eagle. 3 years, $37.7 million. I'm not going to lie. I think this is a massive overpay for Saquon Barkley. That's what? Like, over $12.5 million for Saquon, who's now, 26 years old. So they'll pay him for basically the rest of his prime, being a running back guy who's always hurt for the most part. Didn't have a great year last year. Like, you have a much better offensive line being a much better offense. I think it's overall a good addition, but I don't know how that contract is going to age. But Giants lose Saquon Barkley. I'm sure lots of Giants fans are throwing their Saquon jerseys into the trash now. But Saquon is now a Philadelphia Eagle. So this is what else I got. I'm actually scrolling on my phone to see what else happened. Robert Hunt goes to Carolina, 5 years, $63 million. That's a really good signing for Carolina. Their O-line was horrible last year. They have to protect Bryce Young, their young quarterback. Where Robert Hunt, he was a second round pick a bunch of years ago in Miami. Started at right tackle, was not very good. But since moving to guard 2 years ago, he's become a very good guard. And Carolina adds him to their team. So I like that. Apparently, the Giants never made Saquon an offer. Saquon picked between Philly, the Bears, and the Texans. And he chose Philly over Chicago and Houston. Excuse me, he chose Philly over Chicago and Houston. And, Aaron Jones was let go by Green Bay after they brought in Josh Jacobs. Still have the contract terms, and I'm sure we'll have that at least by tomorrow. And that's all we have so far, so I'm going to end it there. I'm sure when I do this tomorrow, I'll have a lot more for you guys. But until next time, so long, and have a great day.